one side, it's something that really I want to keep up, and I feel I have to keep up with everything. But I would imagine that if you would skip a few things and a few obsolescence cycles of new features, you would probably.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner. Can you develop without VS Code? Man, my mind is blown. I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on March 30th, 2026. Kris. Development has changed. Development workflows have changed. The world has changed. And with us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Stefan Maron about his development workflow and some of the cool things that he's doing with AI-assisted development. Good afternoon, good morning. How are you doing?
Hey, Stefan.
Good morning. I'm doing good. I hope you can hear me.
Can hear you very well, thank you.
That's perfect.
That's good. It's nice to see you again. I haven't spoken to you in some time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
The world has changed a lot since we last spoke.
Yes.
Even if we spoke last week, I can say the world has changed a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's mind blowing. I've never been more mind blown or mind saturated with things and ideas of things that I want to do as I had before. I always have this constant energy of my mind, I think, with all the new stuff that's being released and created as well.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I wonder, do I keep up with it? Do I just, if I take a couple of days off from it and I come back and pick right up with it, will I miss much? Or I don't know. It's kind of sometimes of a challenge because to me, some things become so new and I don't want to say obsolete, but one day we have instruction files. Then the next day we have prompts. Then the next day we have agents. Then the next day we have skills. Do they replace each other? Do they work well with each other? Do you ever miss anything? So it's something else I think of.
Do you feel though that it's just maybe a little rat race within yourself? Because I've spoken to other people that's been in this space for some time, and some of them don't even know some of these features, but we're so eager to want to get caught up. But there's still a lot of. I think we're almost like. We're still living in the bubble, right? But there's still many people who are like, oh, I didn't know that existed. Even features that came out like 2 waves ago.
Yeah,
which means like the day before yesterday, right? Still don't know about it.
Yeah. What is your thought on that? What's your take on that? I know there's a lot I wanted to talk with you about, but this is just something that was fresh on my mind before you jumped in.
I think on one side, it's something that really I want to keep up, and I feel I have to keep up with everything. But I would imagine that if you would skip a few things and a few obsolescence cycles of new features, you would probably still need to get up to speed again quickly, because again, we are constantly learning new things right now. And if you just skip a few things which get introduced and then obsoleted a few weeks later,
Yeah.
So maybe there's some having awareness of it at least.
I think that's important. Yes.
Yeah.
But I also I'm sitting in the same boat with you. I feel like I need to. I feel like I'm keeping up pretty well, and then I go like on X or wherever on LinkedIn, and then I see so many different people doing so crazy stuff that I feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface. So
it's funny that you say that, because I do the same thing. And Kris, it might be something to your point. I don't know if it comes to imposter syndrome, but I read, I keep up, I go with this. I'm like, oh, I have this down. And then I go onto X, LinkedIn, and then I'm like, oh, Stefan's doing another code live stream with Claude. and he's doing all this other stuff, and he's creating in our chats, in our groups, the chat groups we have. Like, he created this stuff, and I'm going, same exact thing. I thought, but it just shows you. Like, I sit there, I see some of the stuff that you do, for example, and I'm like, wow. I thought I really had this with my prompts, with my agents, with my tasks, skills. I'm doing it from my phone, via voice, and then you come up with something. I'm like, I really don't understand it. So
You just get lost again. It's like, I thought I got it, but I'm still going the right
Yeah,
direction, but maybe in the wrong path.
I had the same situation. I talked to Torben Leith the other day.
yes.
And he showed me something he was doing. Like, I felt like I was keeping up pretty good. And then he showed me his tooling, and I was like, okay, now I'm just barely starting.
It's funny how that works, I think. And at this point, with the rapid rate of introduction to new features, I guess you can call them. I don't even know if you want to features, because there's models, there's framework features, I guess we could say, and then you have all of the popular frameworks. I don't know if they're competing with each other, but they're adding features that are similar to each other, so it's very difficult sometimes to keep up with it. But before we talk a little bit more about that, some of the things that you're doing, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Stefan Maron. I think I have been on the podcast 2 times already.
Yes,
If I check that correctly. Yeah, I'm doing what I can to keep up with business center development, AI, and everything around it. I think I need to check I'm a 2 times MVP award holder. So and I do Business Central for, I think, 10 years now, almost approaching. So
that's excellent.
Wow.
A couple things I wanted to talk to you about. Congratulations again on the MVP, and congratulations on some of the great things you're doing. I've watched your live streams, and as you told me, your ramblings about it, but it's very informative and interesting, and it does give some ideas. And I saw also, maybe before we get into that, I saw something interesting that you had posted a few weeks back. I'm like you, a lot of things I remember, I try to remember the timing. And to be honest with you, sometimes I could say yesterday and it was a year ago, or a few weeks back and it was this morning. So I saw you started doing a code review service, I believe.
yes,
And I thought that was interesting. And I didn't get a chance to text and talk to you about it, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that now before we start talking into this crazy world
Absolutely.
of AI and development. But I thought that was relevant and interesting, giving it from my perspective, and then maybe you can tell me or maybe tell me a little bit of what's behind that. And I'll tell you what the first thing that I thought when I first saw that notice.
okay. So maybe the beginning of this came a little bit through conversations I've had with different people, saying that more and more solutions are getting used and deployed and everything put into production, which are really nearly 100%. I don't want to say vibe coded, because that's not really a term anymore, I believe. More like coded with AI assistant, heavily assistants. And I was thinking that maybe there would be a need for people to have an opinion, or to buy an opinion basically from somebody who is not using AI, to have like the experience-backed opinion of somebody who is doing this stuff for some time. That was basically the origin of why I started to draft this service.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw that. I said the timing was, I think, appropriate, because in the world of, as you had mentioned, where everyone's doing AI assisted development and deploying it, and even more so, I think, with Business Central. I mean, I think this Business Central, or AL's in a unique space, in my opinion, because with some of the other popular languages, you're developing applications with languages that have been around, and there's a lot of code available. With Business Central, you're developing code, but that code is a mature language, or it's becoming an extremely mature language as they keep adding features and functionality to it. But you're within already a defined framework of an application that you're not creating. So you have sort of a box to work within for your solution. And that's what I was wondering, was that if that was a basis for it, whereas everyone makes it look that easy to develop with AI. I mean, some things it does really well. Some things you may have to do a little bit more. And I was wondering, with that review, it's probably appropriate so that you can take a look at that. Some people use words like AI slop or AI other, terms for the AI code, just to have another person take a look at it from an outside view, I think.
I think that's a very good point. And I can't speak for other languages or frameworks that much, as I've been only working with AL and Business Central ever since. But I think we are a little bit more constrained with things that are outside of the coding frame a little bit, with the runtime, with business processes, with the base application, with the update and upgrade cycles that Microsoft forces on us, basically in the cloud. And all those kind of things have to be taken into consideration when developing. And I'm not sure how good a coding agent really gets at this without the proper assistance given by the developer or the user of the AI assisted tools.
So with this service that you have, I'll ask, do you do any AI review with it, or is it something that you go through and you review? I'm assuming maybe someone would submit to you. So if someone wanted to have a third party review their code for, I can think of many reasons why. One, just to revalidate the solution to make sure it's working within the framework, or some organizations, I've had other organizations where I talked to, where they were required to have a third party review anything that went into production for security reasons and such. So there's maybe many reasons. So using the service that you had started, somebody, I'm assuming, would contact you and give you a specification and then give you the code. And then what do you do to go through and review that? And how, what is usually the timing that it takes to do that, or kind of go through the process of how you do that and what you provide to them?
Okay. The first step would be, and I don't want to make this a sales session here, by the way, but I want to explain what I did.
No, this is not a sales session. It's something that I'm intrigued by. So I'm the one that brought this up, and we didn't even talk about this beforehand. So this is completely me. So
I do offer a free part, which is basically the kind of quick assessment, which is mostly automated, where I ran a proprietary analyzer I've developed over the last weeks against the code base, which is later then also used for the actual review to just give an indication of like how well does the code perform under this analyzer, basically. That's the first step, and that can everybody just do on my website. And behind the analyzer, or behind that service, is a set of rules. I have looked at the ISO 5055 standard, which is an international standard for coding quality, basically, and worked through all the rules. I think it's like 170 rules or something that are in there, and map them to the AL language, because something like memory exploits or things like this we cannot do in AL. So those are excluded by definition, but others can be translated, and I have done so. I've also published a list of rules which are applicable with their AL explanation on my website for transparency. And on top of that, I am now building an addition to that framework for AL specific rules which are not covered by ISO, because we have a number of things which are still missing from my perspective. So I'm working on that. And the review basically is a sum of all of that. Basically, everything gets run against the code base. So for the actual review, I don't really use AI. I use obviously AI assisted development for developing the analyzer, because otherwise I think I'm approaching 1,500 automated tests on that one. So it's grown a bit. So that would be crazy without it. But this analyzer enables me to do the actual review with merely any AI assisting. So I'm running this against it. I get a ton of warnings or infos based on like confidence. And then I can go through this, and I have tooling to then convert the remaining diagnostics basically into a report with assessments and everything. But in the end, the offering is a 2-level offering. So not everybody may need ISO compliance or ISO review against the ISO standards, because those are pretty strict, pretty comprehensive. So I have like an expert service or expert review, I've called it. So there I would just exclude things that might not be relevant. So
See, now you go back to this
Wow.
is one of those things where you're like, wow, I thought I was keeping up, but now you're writing tooling to analyze code for AEL. And it's like, and you said you used AI to assist with it.
yeah, but that's basically based on the LinterCop work I've done, and which is now transitioning to the AL Cops initiative by Arthur. But that's basically the blueprint for everything I've done. I've just dumped it all, like, this is existing analyzer rules. This is how to develop analyzers. Now go in and implement those rules, please. And that worked pretty well because that's C#, and C# has a little bit more code on GitHub for agents to learn with.
So the analysis is done with the tooling from C#, but it can still analyze the AL source code. Yeah, I thought that was when I saw that you shared that, I thought that was fascinating, and appropriate, because I've been coming across individuals that have had troubled implementations and come to find out it's to use the word vibe coded, because that's what a lot of people still call it for the context of this conversation. Like, I just vibe coded this new thing, and it's starting to become a problem if someone doesn't really understand the code and they just go with it. And I think, again, maybe because I'm in that pool with Business Central, I'm starting to see become a problem with some implementations of Business Central, because we have a smaller box that we have to work within.
Yeah.
And it can create some problems, and it's not so straightforward sometimes.
And I want to say that vibe coding stuff is not always a bad thing. I do vibe code, if you want to call it like this, quite a number of tools for my personal use. And making myself more productive with working my day-to-day business. But those are personal tools, right? They're for me. If they break, I'm the only one affected. And since I'm the one who built it, I'm probably also the one who can fix it. So that's a limited surface that risk surface I'm exposing myself to. But if I vibe code an extension that's used in my business with maybe 200 employees, the risk surface is a different one. Right, and depending on the use case, if it's just like some fancy report, okay, maybe not that critical. But if it's like touching posting routines or stuff, then maybe want to be sure that it's not breaking, but with the next update.
Exactly. No, the risk is important, and it goes beyond just Business Central. It's anyone who's doing any AI assisted development. Really understand the risk in what you're doing. Like you had mentioned, personal tooling is one thing, and being able to create some. I do it myself, and Kris, I know you work on some stuff too. Creating myself a little API endpoint that I work with in my house to get information from, a little Raspberry Pi that I'm running is much different than running a business where I'm shipping product or invoicing or billing, because if that goes down, okay, or if I cause a problem, it does something, okay. You know what I mean? It's like it's very inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. But when you're at a business, it's very important to consider, like you said, the risk, but also, now to go into what you said, AI assisted development isn't a bad thing either. And
no, it's not.
You do quite a bit with it as well, again, with your live streaming and seeing some of the stuff with you do. Can you share or walk through with us sort of your framework that you use for development, and more from that aspect of what are you using for a framework? How do you take a look at the models or assume the models? And then from your development flow, you mentioned you have some tooling or you use some tools, sort of somebody who's looking to get into this, just to kind of hear a workflow. And the framing for this is, everyone hears all this AI assisted development stuff, or use all these frameworks. You have, GitHub CLI, you have Claude Work, Claude Desktop, Claude CLI, Perplexity. You have all these things, and people are saying, I can just vibe code this great stuff. But some people go, well, how do I even start? right? So you have a practical framework that you share in your stream, and you do stuff and some amazing tooling, if I can say so myself. I just want to kind of get in your head a little bit on your workflow and how you set this up and how you think about and approach things.
Yeah, the workflow is constantly changing practically every day. I mostly use, or almost only exclusively use Cloud Code, CLI, because I mean, everything's changing so quickly. Keeping up with all the different frameworks at once would probably be too much for a single person. So I try to stay out of different ways as long as this way works for me. So that's one thing. But what I've noticed at a very early point was that the context burn I had on the AL instructions was pretty bad for everything non-AL. So I started to find or look into a way to isolate the AL instructions a little bit into a way that I can reuse it for different projects, because I don't want to restart with all the agent and skills tooling and everything, all the explanations for every single AL project. So I wanted to have something reusable. Yeah, so what I did was to get around this, that I've started to work on a plugin, I think it's called in Copilot. Oh, not in Copilot, sorry, Cloud Code. I can have, like, there are marketplaces, you can have like different plugins, and a marketplace can basically just be a local folder somewhere on your hard drive. So I basically just had to copy, or have to copy, a one line config file, basically just JSON file with one setting, into the project, and then it would automatically load the plugin. And that way I can distribute the AL instructions, everything I've built, through my AL projects without having it in every session, basically. And there was in terms of tooling. And then in terms of how to build the development workflow, I've looked at plugins like FlowNext. Not sure if you've heard about that. It's basically an approach where you develop on like with files backing your workflow. So everything, every result, every context, every information will be written into a file automatically, and then you can basically on any time interrupt your entire coding session, close everything out, start a fresh session, and it will reread the documentation on the disk and continue. So I've played around with this at the beginning, and basically adapted that approach a little bit to have dedicated agents for solution planning, for requirements analysis, for writing tests, for defining tests, for writing code, everything basically written into a structured workflow of how I want Copilot. Why I'm saying Copilot, Cloud Code to develop.
Cloud Code is still a co-pilot. He's helping you fly the plane.
Maybe I don't know. And it works its way through the chain, the workflow that I've defined, and keeps writing files to the disk. That is first good for me also to review solution design, because I feel like those planning documents with the integrated plan mode that all the agents have nowadays is quite violated. So I never know where that file is saved or how to look back at the plan, if it's approved once or if it's gone. I don't know. So I have a separate planning document where I can always come back to it, just a markdown file in the repository. And also, I have instructed those sub-agents to not return all the information back to the main agent, because that's the default way, or at least it was, I don't know when, the default way of how they communicate. They just do some stuff, and then they dump, I don't know, a ton of information back to the main agent, and that way the context really gets filled up quickly. And with that approach that I've come up with, it writes all the information to the file and returns just a summary to the main agent. That way the main agent can really iterate longer in the same context without having to compact. because then when it spawns the next agent, it just references the files that were created by the previous agent to say, read this and continue, or read this and now do the test document.
That's a check.
Wow.
Thank you. That's a ding, because it's like, okay, do I do it like Stefan? No, I do the same. I create files for things. This was even before they have that, they talk about memory now, which I don't even fully understand what it's doing now as well. But I found doing that was helpful for me, as well as, create this, even, save the chat conversation, or create a summary or something, just so you could have reference instead of you don't have the entire context. When you talk about the start of your workflow, you talked about your AL instructions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have in those AL instructions, or what are some examples of things? So if I were looking to develop my own workflow and try to get a sense of how to manage my AL development, before we get into agents and sub-agents, what types of things do those instructions have? So that
I would need to go there and look. I have no idea anymore.
Okay.
I haven't worked on them for quite some time. They have been working, but my process of writing them or creating them, having them written by Claude Code, was basically trial and error. I started with some instructions that I've come up with, and then basically just tried to work on some projects, and eventually had some issues and said, well, this doesn't work. This should like, this is nonsense. Make it better. This should work like this, and have Claude Code revise the files.
So the instruction files you don't author. You basically talk with the framework, in this case, Claude Code, and this is what I want. This is the result you give me. No,
Exactly.
Go back and fix it.
Yes.
Update your file so that next time you do it the same way.
Well,
I'm paraphrasing. Is basically how you're doing it.
It's a Claude Code session dedicated to that project, to the repo containing the instruction, to that plugin, so to speak. So I'm just like referencing a session, copying results or something, and saying, well, I would have expected this to come out like this. Can we fix this in the instruction files somehow? And then at some point I've migrated to the agent approach, and then I basically just say, well, we have a huge global instruction file. Can we just break this out into different agents and reduce the global instructions, right? Or into different skills. And I'm just like giving this a try. Like, before I commit this, I test it again and see if it works. And then, so it's a living thing, so to speak, and it's really made for my own process. I think I have it published on GitHub, but it's like just for others to look at how I'm doing this, not really a distributable thing.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Now, you're talking about agents and sub-agents. How do you orchestrate those within your workflow? So now you've work through your instruction files, AI assisted, by testing and not want to say trial and error, but by testing and reviewing. This is what I expect. Yes, you did it. No, you didn't. Update the files. So now you have that framework set. And then you said something in there about agents now being a subset of the larger instruction file to complete tasks.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of reworking it again. Also for the stream approach with the containers and everything. But up until now, I didn't use skills yet. I used the commands, which are a little bit deprecated, right? So just for clarification, a command, and I hope I get it right, a command is just one markdown file with some header instructions and then basically the main body of the prompt. While skills is a folder inside the skills directory with a main skill.md which is similar to how the commands work, but then it can have scripts and things and other documentation next to that. So the entire folder gets a skill. And with Claude Code and the skills, I can specify a skill to always run as a sub-agent. So now I'm the way I had it before was I have a command which says, requirements analyzers, then I give some additional instruction to it, and the command has a baked-in instruction to always use sub-agents, which got respected pretty good so far. So it got instructed to use sub-agents for a given task. Also with the explanation, because we need to save context in the main agent's context window. And all of those things. But now with the skills, I can run the skill requirements engineering, and it directly runs as a sub task via I think the CLI's development, like write the code.
Okay. So the commands were the prompts before where you had a specific task almost.
Yeah.
And then with the skills, it's something that can be done with additional tooling for it to be able to complete the task.
Yeah, it can
So
be like
if
the agent can be forced to spawn a sub agent, whereas before it was asked to do so.
Okay. Wow, this is all again, like you said. I think back, like you said, you worked on something some time ago, and you're re-engineering it. I almost would wonder, if you created something a month ago or 2 months. This is just hypothetical, not asking you specifically, but sometimes I go back and I created this a couple of months ago. Is it even relevant anymore? Now with the new framework, but sometimes we can't get too hung up on that as well.
Yeah, when you guys so with the both of you with this your development workflow, with new features coming out, usually the struggle that I have is typically finding a use case of something to try. I mean, is that something that you guys also struggle with, where there is a new function and it's like, okay, where can I fit this? Do you apply it to a solution that you're building for someone, or is this something that you would find something within your flow to see if you could fit in? And maybe that's the best way to learn. I don't know. Is that a struggle for you, for the both of you? Or do you just ask like Claude, it's like, hey, there's a new feature, try it out?
Depends a little bit. I remember I had this feeling when interfaces for AL came out. I was like, wow, this is super cool. I can do so much cool stuff, but I didn't okay, but what problem does this really solve? I couldn't work without interfaces nowadays anymore. So apparently it solves some problems. But with Cloud Code, new features, I don't really search for problems. I just I read the release notes sometimes if I notice a bigger version bump. And then I just read them. So I know about them. So then when I have the problem I can solve with this, I will, basically.
I see.
Yeah, I follow the same approach because I think it's difficult, Kris, as you had mentioned, and Stefan, I think you hit it. If you don't have a problem to solve, it's difficult to try to figure out how to use the tool, right? So do I use a screwdriver? If you give me a screwdriver and a hammer, if I don't know that I have a nail or a screw to put into the wood, what do I use? You try to just figure out a way to use it. You need to have some sort of context of what problem you need to solve. I do try to be aware of some of these, but it gets challenging sometimes to remember all of them. So I start to go with all the features, like you said. I read all the release notes, and it's even getting challenging now. I use a lot of Visual Studio Code, right? So Visual Studio Code, the updates are becoming even more frequent. One day it's 1.10, then 1.11, then 1.12, 1.13, all within a few days with all different features. So it's challenging to keep up with them all. But I think what was the big change for me is I went from I have all of these things that I can use to this is what I'm trying to do. And then from there, it just blossomed. And I've said it to others, and I use it as an example. I mean, the very first prompt that I made was a commit prompt, right? It sounds something so simple, but I was able to, just like you did, Stefan, talk with, this was within GitHub Copilot, work with it to create a commit and a commit message and a commit process that I wanted to match a certain format that I expected the result for. So I had a specific task and a specific problem. It may not be a big deal, and this is what I think that you need to bring into perspective. you don't have to solve big fancy problems, right? Or have some big complex solution. Something as simple as creating a commit message with a certain format is a problem that you need to solve. And you can solve it by utilizing these tools. And that's what really started my momentum once, and it became less overwhelming and started my momentum of being able to create a lot of other tools to solve individual tasks. Then you get to the point where now I can put all of these individual tasks together, right? So now I can go through and do a document for a modification, and then, you know, have the code committed, and then do these things in a workflow more in pieces and putting them together than saying, here's this feature, here's all this stuff, and let's just do it. I think was a big change. So I try to be aware of it, and I try to think if there's any problems that I can solve today with it. And if I can't, I just say, okay. Or if I'm bored, I may say, oh, let me try something for a few minutes. But you really need to have a problem that you need to solve versus just
trying it out.
That's
no
what
reason.
works for me.
Yeah.
It's more practical and it sticks better. So,
Yeah, makes sense.
and my thought process with it. So, so now you work with all of these agents and code. How much development do you do? And I use this, I'm careful with these words because of other conversations. AI assisted development, I'm not going to say is not development. You're using a tool to create and solve a problem. How much of your development today is AI created versus manually created? And with that, I may have some more questions based on your answer.
I need to be careful what to say, but no, but basically, I would say I'm approaching 100% of. I think I am approaching 100% of AI generated code. It's not that I'm not like I review everything, I test everything, but apart from like a few, like need to rearrange a few things or just clean up things, because cleaning up with the quick fixes and other tools we have built throughout the years, or the community has provided over the years, is still faster and more reliable than AI having those cleanups. But like from the very beginning of thinking through the entire process, the requirements, coming up with the solution design, and then also developing the tests, developing the code, up until that point, I barely have VS Code open. Like, I mean, I might use VS Code for looking at the Markdown files, the documentation that was created to review and approve this, giving comments on this, and like working in a tandem basically with Cloud Code to get it to the point where I say this is how we need to do this. But then I just say, well, now we have all the documentation, go.
Wait, you barely have the VS Code open? And you just so that's interesting, right? So for those that are maybe not using so much with AI yet, so you barely have VS Code open. You're almost 100% AI generated code.
I catch myself having, like, I have 3 screens, a wide one like right in front of me, and then 2 smaller ones at the top, where everything is basically console windows with different sessions
Console
running.
CLI.
Yes.
Wow.
I laugh in a sense because I want to unpack some of that stuff because you said a lot. I'm happy to hear the way you workflow because one, I love Markdown, but number 2, you hit a key point. AI assisted development is knowing when to use the tool. And you had said something that's extremely important. You can go in and you review. We're not saying AI assisted development means AI sets it, forgets it, you're done, you publish it into production. You go through a review process. But as you go through your review process, if you see something that's faster or more efficient for you to fix, you'll fix it versus always saying AI has to fix it. And that's a big separation that I'm finding in conversation now is, you know, everyone's like, oh, I'm up to 100% and this and that. But you still have to remember that you can go in. It's not, you have to be at 100%. It's use the best tool for what you're doing. And if I have to go in and move a line up or down, or change the name of a variable, sometimes it's just easier for me to go in and rename symbol versus, oh, you named it wrong, name it this instead, right? So
Yes, but there is also a distinction because I can only work on one project at a time doing those fixes, right? If I have Cloud Code work on 5 of them at the same time, I might still be faster using AI to do the fixes if it is enough for me to give a 2-minute explanation of what I want to have fixed and can have it run for 30 minutes and can then work on different stuff, right? So in those scenarios, I would still maybe fall back to the slower approach, the more inefficient approach, because I can paralyze it and not being on like not being the bottleneck myself.
understood. But we'll still put that in the what's the most efficient way to solve the problem
yes.
bucket. And as you had said, if you have 5 projects running simultaneously, I laugh because when you start thinking about the conversations that you're having, right, or we're having, it's difficult to talk to people that aren't working with it, where you can have I can document one project while I'm writing another project while I'm designing another project all at the same time.
But
It's crazy to think of the context switching.
It is, but it's also very demanding.
I think you're the first person I've ever, a developer wise, like a developer saying like you don't have VS Code open. I'm still mind blown by that, by the way, because I know we've spoken to a lot of developers. We worked with many. You typically have your VS Code open. That's just a thing you do. But for you to say you don't have or rarely have VS Code open, that's just, I'm still stuck with that. I'm still thinking about that. How does that look like? That's just fascinating. Well done, Stefan, for solving that.
Yeah, and I have a file explorer terminal based as well, like a terminal UI, I think you call them. Also, maybe something that is more common among Linux users than Windows users, maybe. But I feel like I'm pretty quick with that one by now. So I have a keyboard shortcut to open that up, another keyboard shortcut to jump into my repositories folder. I navigate quickly with the arrow keys basically into the repository I want. Keyboard shortcut to open the terminal. Now that I think about it, I could change that shortcut to open Cloud Code right away. That would make me more efficient, I think.
Yeah. So are you also so you're a Linux user? Is that what you're using as your main?
Yes.
Which
But
distro?
then let me just bring that thought to an end. And then I start Cloud Code in that repository, and basically most of the time it's continuing previous work, so it's already on the correct branch and everything, and I can just give the context of continuing what I need. Maybe I got feedback or whatever. I give everything it needs to continue. And if I want to review, I recently discovered I can use exclamation mark and then run a shell command right away inside the Cloud Code session. So I run code space dot. So then it opens VS Code inside the folder. I can quickly do my review, close VS Code again, and let it continue. So that's how I do it.
You're doing keyboard. Do you use a Stream Deck or any device like that for your shortcuts? Or is it all keyboard?
I use a keyboard.
Binding?
Yeah.
And I use this. This is my keyboard.
Is that your whole keyboard?
That's my whole keyboard. Yes.
Oh my gosh. This is all shortcuts. So what Linux distro are you using?
Underneath it's Arch.
Arch, okay.
Yeah, we're not even going to go there. That's like I have to build every little thing in the world, and.
But then again, Cloud Code is really good at helping with Linux stuff. So.
That is fascinating for many of. I know, Brad, you and I are probably one of the few people that are on Mac OS. And I do remember in the early days running Mac OS with Parallels, just trying to do anything in Nav, or for many in Business Central. Now it doesn't really matter anymore. And so for us to go back and said, we were right all along. It doesn't matter which machine, because you could pretty much develop now.
Yeah, and I do have Claude on a Pi. as well with Linux that I run some tasks outside of Business Central on, but I do like that framework a little bit more. And you go back, you run everything CLI. It's strange how technology sort of loops, because I remember starting off programming CLI, back when I had a VAX, back even if you look at like MS-DOS and stuff before Windows, then Windows was the latest thing, and the UI and the mouse. And now we're going back to CLI
Yeah.
is the most crazed now, because it's also set up well for AI, because now you can launch other applications and you can, spawn other commands without having to open up a user interface, so that it can be autonomous in a sense, or in a way that the AI can work with it. So that's interesting. Side note, you use Linux for your development, and I ask you, what do you do with reports?
I have a Windows VM.
Say again?
A Windows VM to
Yeah,
do
okay,
the
thank you.
reporting.
See, there's another Chris. You have to do these check marks. I do this like Stefan. See, it's the same thing. I do everything outside of
Then
Windows.
let me
other than
challenge you a little
reports.
bit. I have a Windows VM that is running inside a Linux Docker container.
You beat me there. You beat me there.
There is a nice project, and I have to probably collect a reference list or something afterwards with all the things that I've mentioned. There is a repository for stuff like that. So if you happen to run Linux containers, you can basically just, this is a one shot Docker file. You can just start it, and with like environment variables of which edition you want to use and everything. Obviously, they run unlicensed, so you have to bring your own license or own a license at least to be compliant, right? But after that, you can just start them.
Yeah, someone had asked us about that. Like, if you're developing and you're in a Mac OS, how do you handle like reports? And I thought for me it was the easiest was just I have Parallels, and I just have a published Word, or published Office Suite for what it's worth, and then that's just to get by. But other than that, I mean, browser based and everything else is all local.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, I'm just to see where we've come and how we work now, and I'm still back on the 5 projects. Now, are you working when you publish your applications? Are you publishing them all through Claude to an environment, and then I always have a lot of stuff on my mind with that.
Yeah.
Or do you go into VS Code and you publish it through VS Code?
No.
And then
I do
also,
not.
you do not go into VS Code at all?
No. I have, alongside with my AL instructions tooling, I have started to build other tooling. For example, to start with, I have a bash script basically written by Claude Code to wrap the AL compiler and everything I need with it. So I have automatically all the analyzers. It discovers my VS Code extensions directory to load the DLLs that it needs and everything. It discovers the dependency package folder and everything that's required to burn down the entire AL compiler command you need to compile a project down to a single command. You can have parameters if you want to, if you change something or I don't know, but you can basically just type in al-compile and it compiles. To make it easier for Claude Code to compile my projects, right? So I noticed it's struggling heavily on compiling via the command line, so I figured, well, this has to be made easier somehow. Explored that option we had, and basically Claude Code came up with a solution for this. And then I went further. I also have the same command or a similar command for publishing using the dev endpoint, but from the CLI using curl. So again, a one-shot comment for Claude Code to say bc-publish, and then it publishes. And it just needs to provide the app file and config like where to publish to, right? But
So
and
where you
one for
Go ahead.
testing, but that's not as good yet.
Okay. So I do want to, I said, to step into testing because that's another area that I've had mixed discussions on. And again, mixed discussions doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just
Mhm.
sometimes within the context of conversation, in the scope of requirements. Where are you publishing these to? Are you use Docker quite a bit, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Do you create separate environments for each project for it to work with, or do you have
Yes,
sandbox environments?
I try to keep them separate, and I'm right now in the middle of working on another shot on making BC run on Linux completely in Docker containers. So that's my current side project again for the community a little bit. So, um, but yeah,
Another one
I
of those
try
wonderful things.
to keep one environment somehow be sandbox, Docker, or whatever for per project basically.
So now you're working on it to where you can, in essence, create a Docker container in Linux for Business Central. So you could, in essence, have the AI create it, publish the application, do what it needs to do, and then take it back down without leaving any
Yes,
footprints.
yes,
Wow.
and I mean, it's almost working, but pretty fragile, if I may say so. Uh, I don't know. Some have maybe seen the project I've done before with Torben on like using wine and everything to make it work, but it was like so many dependencies and like a custom wine fork that Torben built somehow. I don't know how. Really crazy stuff. And last week or the week before, I believe, I had somehow an idea of like maybe we can just like cut it all out and just run like use some DLLs from the service directory to just run AL code without any service tier. Like just run the code, right? What do I need? Like we can fake the database or whatever. I don't care. I just want to run the code, right? That's what I want to test. And it didn't work out that good. I had some prototype where I could just like the like messages or like simple arithmetic functions or things like this. I could just execute a single standalone code unit without even a project. So I didn't even have like an app file or anything. Like just run the code unit on run trigger, please. Just execute it. So that worked. But it like when records and dependencies got involved, it got pretty bad. And I dumped that approach. I think it's on GitHub somewhere. I don't know if I made it public or not. But it led to me having with Cloud Code again rewriting the C# code, so you can do crazy stuff with C# where you can exchange dependencies and replace functions and things. I don't really understand any like how that works even, but Cloud Code was able to replace a few things and turn off a few things. Like I said, well, we are in a local Docker or CI environment, so I don't care about authorization. I don't care really about database encryption or things like this. And it replaced the complete HTTP implementation that BC uses under the hood with something Linux compatible. And in the end, I now have something that works, right? It starts just .NET service tier.dll and then it /console or whatever, and it runs. And I'm able to execute tests. Now I'm still working on making this a little bit more stable, but I have like automated tests where like 27.0 through 5 and I think 28 also, they start and they work, and I run like sample tests against this. So
Wow. That will be great because that will eliminate the need for parallels, Kris. And then also, I think some things on the container processor as well.
my
For the,
ultimate goal is really to make pipelines quicker.
I could see that with this.
Yeah.
You can create that, drop it, and you don't need the full I don't say the full application, but like the full install, like you said, because if you're
No,
on a Docker container,
it is a full install basically.
is it full install?
It's a Docker Compose, so I have two containers. One container for SQL Server that just exists for Linux, right? We don't need to do anything there, and then a second service where the BC service lives in. And the scripting, the Docker file automatically loads the symbols. So you specify, I want to have 27.4, whatever. And it figures out the artifact URL. It downloads the artifacts. It extracts the artifacts. There is the service directory. It applies the fixes that it contains, and then just starts the service tier in place, basically, with the connect. Like it adjusts the custom settings config file with the parameters it needs, and just starts it basically. And then when it's loaded, it starts to publish extensions like a normal pipeline would, basically.
I'll have to pay attention to this project a little bit more. I saw you talking about it, and then sometimes, to be honest with you, it's with everything going on and trying to pick up many things. Sometimes I go, "Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot." But hearing and talking with you, the benefit of that is amazing. I can see how it could speed up pipelines, and you don't have to carry a lot of extra weight, as I call it, system-wise, if you can create these containers and work with these containers and get what you need done. One thing that you had mentioned is you test the code with this. What has your experience has been with creating automated tests within the Business Central testing framework using AI?
I think it's becoming mandatory again. Like the more I work with AI assisted development and Cloud Code and everything, I feel like I'm getting back to the textbook style of software development, because all of that, like all the requirements engineering, the documentation creation, all of that, just I skipped it because no customers really pays for all of that supporting work, I'd say. Not for simple adjustments, right? If I just have like a 5-hour task, then why should I create full documentation of requirements and the solution plan and all that kind of things? So the same goes for development with tests, because I came to a point where I say, well, now Claude created, 50 objects. How should I even start to test this in a reasonable amount of time, right? So I've started to investigate into automated tests. Then, well, now you have written the code, now write the test code for it. But then I hit the same problem. Like, how can I now trust my test code, because it's also generated, right? So
yeah.
So
I've seen many stories where people showed that their tests, and the AI went through and basically remarked out the tests, said that the test would pass. It's just, you see some of these comical or hear about some of these stories. It's funny.
So I got texted by Klaus Kahn, I believe, on LinkedIn, and he said he's working on something. I don't think it was a BC project, but also like he has a very sophisticated process how to develop and how to work with Cloud Code. And what he did, and I've adapted that, was to say, before you write any code, and this is an approval gate, I'll have to manually approve this before you can continue. Before you write any code, you write tests, and they have to fail, and they have to fail correctly. So just because if a test fails doesn't mean it fails on the thing you want it to fail on, right? So we have to verify. For AL, sometimes you need to have some framing to have the dependency resolves, right? But beyond that, no code gets written. All the tests will have to fail. If there are any tests which are not failing up front, you have to have like clear documentation around that, why that can't be failed in the beginning, and only then we'll proceed to develop. And then we have test-driven development again.
I was just going to ask, it sounds like we're going back to the days of test-driven development, where you define your tests before you develop.
Yes. And that was that's so far is the only way I found to really have some trust into what happens without me reviewing and questioning every single line of code. And that's also why I started to develop invest into some automated way of running the code, the test, and all the tooling, because I cannot sit there for 50 iterations and run the tests in the browser and paste the results back into Cloud Code. So that has to be automated. That's why I have compile, I have publish, and I have run tests. So Cloud Code can autonomously work on that until we hit that approval gate where I can really run the tests myself once and review the results.
So, I mean, it goes back to almost, and again, I just try to frame it a little bit. So, similar to when you could run, or what you can do with the BC Container Helper PowerShell scripts, right?
Yes.
Where you can run the tests and then you can pipe back the results of those tests,
Yes.
whether it's an XML file or text file. So then you can go through it. Is that you're working similar to that?
Yeah, so if you're
type
on
of
Windows,
framework?
obviously you want to use that. If you're on Linux, you can't. So that's why I have to run some extra miles here. But yeah, essentially, a CLI way of running tests, whatever that may be, just to be able to automate it.
Wow. That's good. I have to pay attention to that one. I
And then-
like that because I do. I use Windows out of necessity. I'm not saying anything poor about it, but I prefer, the Mac OS and also even some headless versions of Linux or such for doing some processing. It just feels a little bit different for me.
Yeah.
And I'd leave it at that. So.
Yeah, but I'm working on making all of that basically work for Linux containers. One challenge I'm still working against is running the tests exactly like BC Container Helper does, because that involves the management API and web sockets and things. So it's a little bit annoying. I have it running basically with a custom extension to just expose testability via OData. That works without a problem. But I wanted to have it, work without that dependency. But essentially, when you're on Windows or wherever the Windows Docker container and the PowerShell scripting and everything works, then you want to use that.
Wow. You're doing a lot of great things with that stuff. So it's, yeah. I sit back and that's where I'm saying, wow, I wish I would do it. I don't know how do you find the time for it? And you're going to say Claude's helping you. So
Well, I said I'm working on 5 things in parallel nowadays. So 3 work and two community things of something.
Wow.
That's great. That is great. It's
Well, I think that's a great example of what is AI doing for a lot of us. It's like if we're able to produce a little bit more and actually open up a little bit more time for you to do other things, because
Yes.
you do have tools like Claude in your case, or whatever tools or AI tools you're using. So you can do more things. You can produce more, but then still have that quality of work, quality of life, and be able to do projects to kind of keep you up to date, or keep your creativity mind open doing side work as well. So,
But I do have to say that kind of working is definitely more exhausting on the mental capacity. I feel like now when I'm working like this, and it's not every day, of course, but if I have days where I'm busy like this, I feel that I'm really exhausted at the end of the day. Because switching context, maybe not even 5 things, it was just a number, right? Maybe 2 sessions, maybe 3 sessions in parallel, where you switch all the time between A to B to C, back to A to C to B, and that really gets exhausting.
that's a good point. Task switching, it requires a lot of mental. I don't know what there's like a mental switching that you have to do, because you have to. It's not the work itself; it's more of the switching your mind on a task that you're working on. It's very
Especially
exhausting.
because with that kind of development, if I'm managing this, I need to overview the concept, right? I have to have the concept and the overall goal and everything I have to have in my head. And I need to pause that for a second, have a completely different context now in my head.
Yeah.
And then pause that again to switch back to the original one without mixing them or without forgetting about different things. So
That is true.
Well, that's what I was saying before. My mind gets on like overload now with ideas of things that I can do, but also, like you said, the context switching is exhausting, and the output and the benefit. Do Do you ever think, again, this is philosophical, do you ever think that we're going to get to the point where output far exceeds consumption and everyone's creating just a lot of stuff that is just there? And what I mean by that is we can all produce so many things now, right? You had mentioned you're producing, there's several projects, working on several projects at once, or you're creating documentation now. I'm happy to see a lot of people doing and creating development documents or extension documents that no one ever thought to create before, and they're far better than anyone would write. And then there's people creating business process documents, right? And then everyone's creating extensions, creating applications. Is there ever a point where there's just too much stuff for us to be able to consume? And if AI is going to be the one consuming it, do we even need it in a sense, right? If we're going to continue that process of generating for AI, is that all even necessary to have the extra stuff around it versus just what you said, the one command CLI to be able to publish an application instead of a book on how to do it?
I have no idea. Honestly, I have really no idea I feel like we're getting closer to Iron Man just saying, well, I have an idea, let's fire up some things, right? And then it just works. And I think the closer we get to this point where it just works, the less important it really gets to, like, also what kind of language is it written in. I talked to my brother the other day. He was working on something on like private matter, but also with Cloud Code. And he thought that Python would be the tool, the language to go with. And then Claude researched a little bit on like existing projects and said, well, here's a C# project. We could port that into Python somehow. And my brother just prompted like, can't we just write our tool in C# and just reuse it? I mean, I don't care which language it's written in. I'm not the one writing or reading it. I'm just testing, right? So I think we might get closer to that where we really language independent, and maybe like the human readable languages will be deprecated at some point. Because if no human ever reads the code or writes the code, what's the point in making it readable? If it has to be translated later into machine code, maybe
there is back to assembly language.
I don't know if machine code will be the solution, but maybe a different language that is way more optimized for AI to write and read and maintain. Something that humans couldn't work with, but AI can really work good with it. I don't know. So I think we'll get into that direction at some point.
And the scary thing is, it'll probably be within our lifetimes, or in my lifetime, and I'm the old one, and at the rate of how this is going,
yeah,
like it's
interesting. Stefan, we had a conversation with a few guests, and we had asked a similar question. Outside of our world, where we work with every day, that's we interact with AI with this framework. But outside of that, I do realize that 9 out of 10 people have no idea of all these tools and framework. Do you feel that as well when you're talking to somebody that's maybe not so much in IT, but they may be interacting with application, they have no idea, no clue? Like, I'll give you an example. My wife's a teacher, and she has no clue that she could use AI tools to kind of help her. She has they've used ChatGPT and some Copilot, but being able to create beyond than just prompting or beyond just gathering information. Do you feel like we live in a bubble for our work?
Yes. If you're referring to people outside of IT, then absolutely yes. Like the general point is either no touch points so far, nothing at all, apart from news in the TV, basically, to maybe ChatGPT on their phone, but beyond that, nothing.
Yeah. So we all live in the bubble.
Sometimes
But
it is ignorant.
but we are also the first ones, I think, the developers to really be forced to work with that kind of stuff, because otherwise we would get deprecated pretty soon. I think it was a session from Vieko on directions. He said, well, we're the first ones to fall, basically, pure developers or programmers, basically, because large language models are, he said that, are really good at doing text, like languages, spoken languages, but spoken languages are really complex compared to developing languages. So like for agents, it's apparently very easy to do code because it's so much easier compared to spoken languages. And an LLM can do any language, right? Speak any language. I even tried a local dialect of where I'm from in Germany, and it was able to like understand that, transcribing, understanding that, and then also writing like if it would speak in that dialect. So
Wow.
I laugh at some of the stuff I see because you almost feel like it's alive and that it's working, and we talk with it and how you refer to it, and even now where they've added the interactions back with you, right? Is there really a need for it to say, oh, the user wants this, and okay, I'm going to add, it could just spit out the information without having that, but they've sort of built into it the sense of interaction in a way. I don't know if you know what I mean. You know how when you work with
yeah,
Claude, it's like,
the thinking
thunking, and it gives
basically.
you, yeah, but it doesn't really need to show all of that thinking.
But I think Cloud Code doesn't show it, I think, most of the time. I now worked a little bit with Copilot CLI today, actually, and I was very surprised that Copilot shows all of the thinking. I was like, why do I need to read all of this? Because I'm used to
Yes.
not seeing that. I can turn it on, but it's hidden by default because I don't really care. But I think back when thinking got introduced, I think it helped produce way better results than without the thinking.
So the results help construct the output.
I don't know how, but it does improve something at somewhere. I don't know.
It's magic, man. It's magic is what I
It
look
is.
at.
It
It's
is.
just
It really is.
it's
And
a little.
the craziest thing of all of this is, I think Tine said it in one of his sessions. I saw a post on LinkedIn the other day that LLMs are basically hallucinating 100% of the time. Just 80% of the time it's right. So, which is basically what it is. It's just statistics, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just the probability of the next word being this word is the highest based on the context, like where we have come
That's
from.
true.
So, and that's so crazy to think of.
I don't even know how someone could sit to think to even come up with that, right? I mean, I know most inventions aren't derived from the intent of that thing that gets created. It's a byproduct. Like you look at the combustion engine, right? The combustion engine wasn't the desired result. It just came out as a byproduct of what they were doing. It's just the same thing I wonder with this stuff. But then you sit back and you're like, who can think that you could just archive everything and then statistically based upon what you've written, it predicts the next word and then continues to the point where it's writing in our context, 50 AL objects, adding fields to pages, adding fields to tables. It's just something very difficult for me to comprehend how statistics is
Yeah.
doing all of that.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I think if I remember correctly, this goes back to like the 1950s and mathematics inventing this stuff, right? And now we have the computing power to just to make it work, right? This isn't a new invention. It's just now it works.
Yes, because
Yeah.
we have the scale at which we can produce it
Yeah.
rapidly versus having someone, have to do it by hand in essence, or even back with punch cards back then when they did that. It's fascinating. Well, I could talk with you about this stuff all day. I mean, you're doing some great things. I'll have to interact with you more in the stream sometimes, just to get you more into it. But I do appreciate everything that you're doing, and you're doing some great stuff. I have to take keep following that Linux BC container process that you're doing as well.
I will announce this as soon as I have something where I can say, well, now I can let people test this. It's already public. If you want to have a look on my GitHub profile, it should be the topmost repos I work on right now, so it should be easy to find. But yeah, I didn't announce it for now because it's still work in progress. And maybe just one more sentence about this. I want to I want to get it to a point where I can run the Microsoft test suite on it to see if it really gets faster with excluding the startup, boot time, and all the statics around it, just the plain computation power to run tests faster, basically, too. Because they have, I think, the largest test suites and the longest running ones. So
yeah.
They do run at length, and sometimes they all don't pass for me. So I don't know. We'll have to.
Maybe we'll get this solved too.
I hope so. Well, Stefan, thank you for talking with us this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're doing some great things, and I'm happy that we're willing to share your workflow and your thoughts and everything with us. And you're doing some great things. The history repository is a great tool as well. If anyone hasn't worked with it, you're looking for the source code for every version of Business Central. You go back pretty far. I don't know how far back you go. It's tough to remember, but all the versions and all the updates, it's a great resource for any developers. 15. So back almost to the very beginning.
Of Business Central, is of AL.
Yes, Business Central, excuse me. I don't even think in Nav and Navision anymore. I think of just Business Central, but thank you for clarifying that as well. Yeah. If anyone would like to reach out to you to learn more about some of the great things you're doing, some of the projects you have, your code review service, or even talk a little bit more about AI and some of the things that you are creating and doing in your workflow, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Texting me on social media, basically. On LinkedIn, I should always receive the message, but X and Blue Sky should also work.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you again. Look forward to seeing you soon. Are you coming over to Directions North America next month?
I am not. No, okay. Can't do everything. I will be on Tech Days. I have a workshop on Tech Days. I'm still thinking of submitting a session for the Linux stuff. We'll see if I get it there far before the deadline ends, and then also if it's interesting enough for people to listen to me for 90 minutes talking about stuff like this.
I think you would be surprised. I think many people would be interested in listening to you.
Might get pretty technical though.
That's good. I'd listen. So no, we do appreciate it, and thank you for all that you do, and thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. I know time is precious. Any minute you spend with somebody or spend doing something, you don't get that back. So we do appreciate you taking the time to share with everybody, and I look forward to talking with you again soon, and hopefully we get to cross paths at a conference or an event or something somewhere at one point where we can sit down and talk about this at further depth.
No, thank you for the invitation. It was really great talking to you again.
Thank you again. I look forward to speaking again soon. Ciao. Bye.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.